Hello, welcome to this week's clinic. There's been a bit of a gap while we've been busy on site, but we're back now here to answer any questions that people may have regarding their projects, whether that's at the beginning of the project, whether they're still thinking about the design sections of it. Maybe you've already started your project and you need a little bit of help with some technical aspects of that, or anything in between, basically. We are here to help plug those gaps. If you've attended one of our courses, then you do get 6 months at the moment of this. We are moving shortly to a subscription-based model, but we will talk about that more when we've got a bit more information. For now, if you've joined us on one of our courses, then you get access to this. And also, if you have any questions that you want to ask, but you can't join one of the clinics, you can hit us up on our social medias on Twitter or by email and ask the question, and we will answer it at the end of the session. Today we have got a couple of people joining us. I think we've got one of our favourites who's been on for a while, Kevin, who's developing his Eco Lodge project. So we're going to see what stage he's at and see if we can help him with some other questions. And we're also being joined by Raina, who has a project up in Scotland that she wants to discuss.
Hello,
Hi, Raina.
how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
Not bad, not bad.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah. I kind of expected there to be more people taking advantage of this, but
Yeah, sometimes we have a couple more people,
yeah.
sometimes not. I think we've got somebody else, Kevin, who's been on a few times, is probably going to join in a little while. But for now, you have me to yourself.
Lovely.
Yes, indeed. So do you want to introduce your project and let me know how I can help?
Sure. So on paper there's no project, but there is.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much backstory you have, but I studied architecture. I've been in India. And then I moved here, did my master's here, but it was part 2 equivalent. So I'm not part 2, not part 1,
Right.
none of them. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm working as a part 2 architectural assistant
Cool.
with the firm that you may have heard of or worked with, Archetype.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Yeah, in
Nice.
Hereford, but Edinburgh, the Edinburgh office.
Yeah.
And then we live in a 195-year-old terrace in a village in southwest of Glasgow.
Cool.
And as it stands, we have the top floor, which is the one flat, which is the top floor and the loft.
Right.
We just bought the downstairs, one of the 2 downstairs flats, which is the 2-bedroom.
Yeah.
And we're hoping at some point to get the 1-bedroom as well and kind of return it to a single building or some version of that, because I mean, we don't really need all that space, but I like the gardens. The 2 people who were in there for the last 4 years hadn't mowed their lawns, for example. So and you had to walk through them. So it was this like unruly bit, and then our garden, which,
Nice.
So, I know. I want to turn that into some kind of communal garden instead.
Oh, cool. That sounds great.
Yeah, get some food growing and stuff. But as part of that, I want to build a shed.
Right.
I say shed, but now I personally like the aesthetic of natural materials and I like the unfinished finish.
Right.
My partner doesn't. He likes a nice neat edge and smooth finishes, but I'm not having plaster and render on my shed. It's a shed. It's not going to be anything more than a shed. Maybe a nice space to sit outside.
Yeah.
But a shed.
Okay.
So he likes the aesthetic of rammed earth.
Okay.
Which I think is it may be a bit excessive for a small shed, but at the same time,
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's just us. So us, and maybe if we can convince him, his dad, who's a plumber, so that helps us get a little bit of services sorted out. But essentially. And now the biggest question for us right now is that where do I put the shed? Because as it stands, so as I said, we have the back half, which is entirely facing south, but our neighbor to the west has all of the trees that you can imagine, and they have never ever been trimmed.
Right.
So like 50 to 60% of our garden doesn't see sunlight.
No.
Yeah, I mean, we get it. You know, that narrow window of 12 to 1 is when you get sunlight, and that's it. No other time. But the flat we've just got, their patio gets all of the sunlight that you can imagine. And so now I'm trying to decide, do I want to put the shed somewhere where if it had a wee patio of its own, we'd be in the sun?
Yeah.
Or do I am I wasting sunlight space by putting a building on it?
Oh, tricky. Yeah, because you want some growing space potentially. Yeah. So maximizing your sun for growing on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Growing, sitting at, just for human life. Yeah. But then at the same time, like, it doesn't need to be thermally efficient. It's a shed. Yeah. I just need it to be watertight for the most part. And that
makes sense.
I'd like to test out natural building.
So it's not going to be an office. It's going to be somewhere to stick your gardening stuff and maybe to sit out and, have things that you're going to use in the garden, and it's utility, not leisure.
I mean, in theory, this is where the confusion comes into play. I'd like for it to be a bit of a usable space, but I mean, that depends on how much, like, how much is that going to add in terms of design thinking, effort, money, all of that. Like, if it's easily achievable within what we intend to do and it does the shed aspect well, then it would be good to be able to, both of us like making things, maybe a bit of space just to keep a flat surface and spray paint something or color something, solve something.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, from a cost perspective, once you go beyond the basic shed structure, the complexity that you're adding is the insulation and the finishes. So it's, it's just as you know from designing anything, that's where it starts to become complicated, because to do it well you need to design all the detail and make sure that the insulation joins in the right places, and you can't just stick some in the walls, you need to do the floor and the roof, and so it does suddenly transform it from being like quite a simple DIY project into something that's a little bit more difficult to achieve.
Exactly.
So I think you'd have to like really define how you're going to use that space realistically, and kind of go, well, how aspirational is it to use it for that other kind of space, or design it in a way that means it's going to be very easy to improve it later on when you do decide you want to use it for that.
And I mean, I know one thing though, having heard you say that, it's kind of clicked that we don't need it to be a warm, comfortable, consistently usable space for sedentary activity. If anything, it'll be used, but as in, it'll be used to be doing things. And
when the weather's nice enough anyway, but you just need somewhere to do it. So it's going to be kind of ad hoc. It just needs to be a sheltered space that's multifunctional, but it doesn't need to be high performance.
That high performance will be saved for trying to passive house and to enter fit this 200-year-old building.
When you're doing the actual work to the whole of the, is it a tenement that you're in? Is it one of the old Glasgow tenements, or is it?
It's not. No, it's just a category C conservation area village. So we narrow street, and we can't change the front, but we can change the back.
Cool. I'd save all of your whiz-bangery for when you do the retrofit on that as a whole thing, which will be much easier to do as one complete building than lots of individual flats, as I'm sure you know.
Exactly. That's what. So I'm like impatient for a new kitchen and a bathroom, but at the same time, both of them are on the south. The kitchen currently is where the bathroom used to be, so their service is there and it's in a corner. So technically it would be logical to move the bathroom into there and take up less space, and move the kitchen to the north where it can do something useful rather than just take up sunlit windows.
All of this lovely warm sunny space at the front of the house, at the back of the house. Let's put all of the kind of utility space and standing around space on the cold north side.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Let's just put this off for a bit, try and get the two flats downstairs.
Waiting them out. So you just stomping around in your heaviest boots, being really unruly neighbours, trying to push him out the door.
I mean, I actually expect he'll go soon. It's a very small flat, and we find that both those flats, at least from my husband's always lived here. He's been here since he was like 12, I think, in this flat. Cool. We bought it from his parents. And from what I've heard and from what I can see, they two flats are too small for anyone to stay in for very long. It's one of those things that he's definitely, like, throughout COVID, he stayed with his partner or his girlfriend or whatever.
Because it was just rattling around. Fair enough. Cool.
So
well, that's helpful.
Fingers crossed. And he knows, like, we've told him that it's not like we're in a hurry to get rid of you, but if you do ever decide to leave, come to us, because we want the building.
We will immediately do it. Yes. Very quick, no chain, cash sale.
Exactly. We'll get it done. So come to us.
Brilliant. Well, that sounds good. Good stuff. Well, that's good. So that means that you can concentrate the simple approach to your little garden project, which is great. This is unusual. This is usually not the way the conversation goes. Normally it's like, I want to do something really simple, but and then you list all of the ways in which it's going to be complicated and expensive, and but
I'm looking for simple. I'd like to I mean, if it happens, I'd like to test out a bit more natural materials and kind of experiment in the shed to then apply those here.
Yeah.
I'm happy to use that as like a trial playground. Yeah, that's pretty much it. We've got tires coming. I have a friend who's a truck mechanic, so we've got 4 large truck tires.
Brilliant. So you can use those as the little pillars for it, some posts on each corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that would be great. Yeah. Well, I mean, I would do a simple like timber frame construction, but then I would do different panels. I'd like, you could do like a small rammed earth in between, like around on one wall. You could do light clay straw, which is you know, where you can make an actual panel. You could do a bit of your own kind of hempcrete, which would kind of make it mildly kind of insulative as well as being able to play with 2 or 3 technologies that would go really well on a retrofit. You know.
Yeah, I mean, like rammed earth is not useful in this building. It is a building.
No, that would just be for fun. But yeah, hempcrete or light clay straw. Hempcrete more would be a good one to get your head around because it's a much better fit for a retrofit project. So as a little test bed, that would be a really good one in combination with some wood fiber. You could just get your head around how those two play together. And then on the outside, you can either leave it kind of semi-exposed or clad it with some, you know, pallet wood or whatever you've got lying around. Really. Depends what your aesthetic is.
Yeah. What we've got lying around is not very useful. but yeah, the cladding aspect would be something. So timber frame, that's
it takes the mystery out of it, and it just means you've got these big voids that you can play with, that you can put anything in, and you can change them over time. You know, you could, you know, do something with light clay straw just for, you know, giggles, and then you could kick it out and do a new bit and see how that works. You know, there's a lot of flexibility in it, and they're all really low tech, quite fun things to do, you know, on your, you know, without too much, you know, no big setup costs or anything like that.
Oh, exactly. And then the timber frame makes it easier, or plays well with the tires as well.
Yeah.
Which would be pretty
what sort
useful.
of size are we talking? How big?
So I attended your course. I'm not sure if you remember. In which I think your permitted development allows us way too much, and I will not be making use of that. I don't know if I can share my screen.
I think you should have permission.
So here we are. Share the screen. Yep, that works. So this is what I'm going here. It's this entire thing.
Oh wow!
It's huge. That's just the wee house at the corner. And it is enormous, just unreasonably sized. So I'm pants with landscape. So this is just like a huge blank canvas with, I don't know what you do in such a space. All I know, his mum's a gardener, so she's had gorgeous beds and things in around here. We've kind of mowed it. That's it.
No, that makes sense. I see what you mean. So that patio up by is that what you mean? What by the house? So that gets all the really good sun.
Exactly.
And then all of this kind of bottom bit, as the sun's coming around in the afternoon, you get shade in that kind of in the middle section.
This whole chunk becomes grey at some point. This is a huge tree, and these are all very tall. So there's this is the point. So this is where our shed is currently. That thing that you can see is the shed. Their shed is here, but we just bought this half. And then this half is the 1 bedrooms, and they've got a wee house outside.
Got you.
Tiny building. The neighbors have this huge structure. So there's this whole wall here. Which was the other thing. Now the ground here is slightly sloping, but that's okay, because I was thinking this might be a good place to put a building. because we get to make use of, I mean, they've put in roofing here, they've roofed this part, and the pitch slopes down that way.
Right.
So I mean, it would actually work really well. We could easily build out here, but that also puts it kind of smack bang in the middle of the site.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, it's just there. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit more accessible though, because so you've got to think about you want to think about access, like what you're going to be using it for. So if it's going to be, if a certain amount of it is utility for, you know, maintaining the garden and being functional, then you want it to be close to where you're using the stuff. So I don't know, are you familiar with permaculture at all? Or permaculture design?
Not very, no.
So permaculture is just a set of design tools. It was set up originally to look at, it was permanent agriculture. So it was looking at sustainable farming and gardening practices. But it was a set of design principles effectively that you could use on any kind of system. And so that extrapolated out and it started being used more or as well for sustainable design generally. So it became a lot about permanent culture rather than just permanent agriculture. So if you're designing a sustainable system, that could be laying out your kitchen so that your spoons are near your where your tea is made, and your mugs are next to where your kettle is, and your tea bags are near there as well, and then you don't have to go all the way across to the other side of the kitchen, so it's inefficient, you know. Or it could be designing how an office structure works or how a governing body operates, you know. Just design tools. And one of the ways they kind of think about things is in zones around where you are, so that you identify the activities that need to happen in an area, and then you design it to fit those activities, so that you're not, you know, got a big bed that you have to dig that's 100 yards over that way and all of your shovels are 50 yards that way. Everything locally. It's basic common sense, but it's really worth doing. I definitely, like, I'd say just as a professional thing for yourself, it would be eye-opening to do a permaculture design course. I think that would be, if architects went and did that, it would be brilliant, because there's some fantastic little insights that you can take. But from this kind of perspective, because it's that sweet spot of designing a building and also kind of designing how you're going to use the garden, you kind of need to think about them together, not as separate things. And that will help you choose where to put it, I'd say. Kind of having an idea of how you're going to use the whole of the garden space, and what you want to use the shed for. So what are the other incidental things? Would you go out and do some parties in it? Are you going to do some spoon carving? Is it going to be where visiting family play jigsaws in a sudden shower after a picnic? You know, whatever it is, kind of brainstorm all of the different things you could use it for, and then that's going to dictate how useful it is to be further or closer to your house.
No, that makes sense. It's funny applying what you think you already know about design and buildings to grass.
Yes.
It's in my mind just a big field.
It's almost like there's too many options. It's just like, well, I could do anything, and then it sets in, you're like, oh, I could do anything. It's like, I don't want that. I want some boundaries that I can design within, because I'll be like, well.
Exactly. It's too huge. There's so much possibility. I could do, as you say, anything. But then where do I start for anything? There's what?
Well, this is it. I mean, for me, data is your friend. It's kind of really thinking about all of those little bits and pieces, you know, like spending a bit of time and looking around and kind of going, you know, like what does it feel like or look like from different bits? Like, go and put a chair in different sections and sit there and just watch for half an hour and see how the light changes and see how it feels. You'll notice like a really annoying bit of noise overspill from 2 doors down, and you're like, oh, I want trees between me and that. Or you know, or you might notice that there's a really interesting bit of wildlife traffic that happens in that area, and you're like, oh, I want to watch that, not build a shed on top of it. Or so
actually, you might even, no, I'd be very amused if you could see it, but we have a wee path over here that's kind of permanently cut in the grass by what I think is a team of hedgehogs.
Cool.
I don't know, we've never seen them. We just know that there's definitely beasts, because there's a clear line.
Amazing.
Across, like.
Well, this is it. Cats and stuff. There's all sorts of different things going on, and one of the things that permaculture looks at is like the different dynamics on site and like what energies run through it. And that's not like hippy dippy crystal energy.
Yeah.
We're talking about water, air, bird traffic, hedgehogs, snails, whatever that is. And then you design systems to work around that. So, you know, for pollinators, for planting different things to encourage them and whatnot. And it just can be really, really interesting, especially if you're going to start doing something with the land itself. Then those things can really help you do it. Right, work with it, not against it.
No, the land is a whole other thing that like. So this bit is raised.
Yeah.
From here down, this slopes away like quite a bit to the point that last year, what was it? Or based from the east, we had a flood up to here. Oh wow! Like half the garden was. There's a burn that runs here. You can't see it.
Cool. Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
That's that.
Yeah.
So, that's an old folks' home, and there's some very loud folk, the staff in there. Right. Scream a lot, but at the same time, there's a burn, so I want to make use of it. But like I need that screaming from them. But
screaming. Yeah.
I want to chuck seeds at their side of the bank because the fence is on their side.
Yeah, loads of bamboo. Get loads of bamboo on there.
Exactly. Just to big screen across there. But yeah, like the whole site is at like crazy angles. I don't know. Hugh, my partner, likes a nice big open field. He likes the fact that it's nice, big and green.
Yeah.
I'm schooled, so in my mind, landscape needs to have a certain amount of tiles, and you need to have a water feature. You need your trees need to go in this.
You need to have some little things to break up the view and give some depth into it. And bloody
exactly. He looks at me like I'm crazy. He's just like, but it's nice.
Just enjoy it. Just
go outside and sit and enjoy it. But like, no, don't we need chairs?
Yeah.
Maybe a little canopy or something. Pergola. Who cares? Just go outside.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, it's kind of, it boils down to one of the Hartwyn favorites, which is it depends. There's no right answer here. It very much it depends on what you're going to use it for, how often you're going to use it, at what times of the year, how other people use the gardens around them, which you can't always predict anyway. So on a purely pragmatic level, building up against an existing structure makes sense. So going further down that garden and putting it next to the neighbor's large construction, that does make sense. You're protecting it, you're kind of nestling it away. You've already got that kind of visible line has been built already, so carrying that on is sympathetic, not kind of going against it by plonking it right in the middle somewhere. But that could be, that's definitely a very logical starting point to consider, I'd say. That area.
The only side, like the con of doing that is, as you said, it's miles away from the building, so you're coming all the way out here to get the lawnmower to go all the way back there and mow that. For example, if we were just doing that bit, or
and so the existing shed is kind of at the end of that first little plot bit there.
So both sheds, there's two. I was also thinking of that, like I say there, it's now ours, but that shed space was another possibility, because there's a fence across there, and we're kind of like, it makes no sense to remove the fence for now because that belongs to someone else as it stands, and it would look odd if we just had fence on that wee side. So keeping that fence there means then we could also use the fence as something to attach,
a natural break.
And kind of use that break to build. But as you can see, that is sunny, but it still does get, that tree blocks out, like if the sun comes in that way, this bit gets shaded as well, so it's not terrible. And it's not, I don't think we intend to make it huge. The roof is another thing I'm not sure about. Do we just go with the standard timber frame felt top? I'm not keen on using the felt.
Well, I mean, it depends what you want to do. I mean, for kind of simple kind of shed things, then we just use like a agricultural, profile metal sheet. something like that. You could probably get one locally, like a reclaimed one, so that it's not all shiny and whatnot, and you can get them pretty cheap. Those are really good, really easy to use. Or you could make a feature of it, slope it towards the garden rather than away from it, and put a green roof on it. But you don't really need to do that because you got quite a lot of green. I would just use it as because one of the things that even in Central Belt, water being available at the times that you need water is going to consistently start to be a problem everywhere. You're going to either have not enough or too much. That's how it's going to go with climate change. So having a way to catch and store water on your own property is really, really useful. So I would potentially have just a nice steel, roof with a big water butt off the back of that, and then an overflow into a small pondy, wetlandy kind of area. And then you've got the best of both worlds. You're kind of using it as a catchment. You've got some water that you can use to, water plants when you're growing them. But if it dries out, it's not the end of the world. Something like that is good. So the more roof you've got for catchment, the better in that sort of situation. But unless you've got a vast amount of storage, it stops making sense after a certain amount. So,
well, storage is not. I mean, if we wanted to go bonkers, we could just fill the entire garden with storage. It's one of those good. I mean, I was also considering ground source heat pumps because just purely because we have the real estate to do it. We could probably power the street if we really went. If all of us not difficult.
Absolutely. I mean, if that's a consideration, then I would do the groundwork on that before you do anything else, and just have it in the ground for in 2 or 3 years' time when you want to connect it up, because that's the big cost. And once it's in, you can grow whatever you want over the top of it and forget about it. But if you start growing loads of nice things, you're just starting to get your first crop of homegrown raspberries, and you've like, how have I got this many courgettes? What's going on? And then you have to dig it all up. You're going to be sad. So definitely look at that.
No, that's a good idea. I didn't really think about that in the process of what order to do things in.
You can stage it. So we're trying our best to buy a house at the moment. We're just waiting for the onward chain to clear. And one of the things that we're looking at there is we've got a nice bit of garden as well. And we were weighing up the chances because we've got we're going to have to put some drainage in when we first get there. So we're borrowing a digger from a friend to do a load of work. And I was just like, well, shall we bury a massive 20,000 litre container for rainwater harvesting so that we can be immune to drought over the things? Should we do that? Should we put a ground source heat pump coil in ready for in 5 years' time when we upgrade the heating system? So it's like, you've got access, because we're going to have access to a digger. So it was like, actually, this might be a good bet to do that now. But
digger is where we will have a problem because, as you can tell, there isn't exactly a way into the gardens.
No. What is there down here at the bottom of your neighbour's garden? It looks like there's some, is that parking? They got access through there?
No, that's their raised food beds.
Okay. Oh, rubbish.
They're growing food over there. All of this is like, we're talking hundreds, 200 years old. Including that structure there is a gorgeous chunk of ruins. It's one of those dream things you want to have in your garden. I just have some old ruins back there.
Oh, amazing. Wicked. But no, you're not getting a digger in there, not with the deck at the bottom. I mean, they do actually make it's a hilarious. It's like somebody's done it for a bet. They make a digger that is small enough to go through a house, like through the doors, normal doors in a house. It's really tiny. It's like 850 wide. And it's got a little tiny bucket on it, and the tracks go in tiny. But when you get it back outside again, the tracks go and go wide again so that it doesn't fall over. It's hilarious. So you can actually get a little tiny digger in, especially if you're doing, some relatively vigorous works downstairs that wouldn't mind driving a digger through your house. So it is possible. It is possible.
Something to consider. You're also, this is maybe something you might be able to give us some advice on. How does one strip paint from stone?
Strip paint from stone? Well, it would depend on what the paint is. If it's just like loads of layers of gloss from over the years, normally that's like sandblasting or some other kind of like high pressure water blasting is like a pressure washer type of affair. Or it's just elbow grease. It's like paint stripper and a kind of troweling thing.
Yeah.
And then sandpaper and abrasive pads, and
fun.
You can get pads on a drill, like a sander, you can use to do it and things like that. A very unforgiving job. Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah, generally speaking, it's probably one of those things where it's worth getting a contractor in with a blaster of some description, and they can do it, because they can do it in such a way where it won't damage the stone underneath.
Yeah.
But yeah, is that on the actual house itself?
It is. So I'll drop us here and show you. It's this building.
Right.
And this stuff, which is currently beige, is actually black stone.
Oh, wow.
And the window surrounds and sills are sandstone.
Right. God, so you've done that. That's horrible.
I don't know. And it's years of this stuff. So this is the 2-bedroom we bought. They've never even washed their windows. So we are absolutely thrilled to be rid of this mob. It's time to go out and actually, we didn't want to do anything to the building because we wanted the flat. We didn't want to make it look attractive to anyone else.
You want to get them out and then fix it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool.
So that's in progress. But essentially, I mean, you can see there's no room over here. So it's whatever we do has to be done quickly, or we're going to be blocking off a road.
Yeah, well, they'd probably rig up. They kind of rig up a little tent basically when they do it.
Yeah.
And it would be just the same footprint as if you had scaffolding up. In fact, it might just be scaffolding that they use. And then they get in, they kind of sheet it all off, and then they get in and they do this kind of sandblasting thing. But it's kind of got this like a vac on it, so it kind of sucks it up at the same time, getting rid of it. Yeah, and it's supposed to be a lot gentler than it used to be. So sandblasting in the past was really, really, really bad and would damage the building. But I think there are kind of conservation type ones that do much better now.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'd look at that, and I'd say that it looks. I can't see anything. Has it had any kind of charlatan damp-proof people attack it at any point?
This mob, just before they sold it to us as well, to the point that they killed the power to the street.
Oh God.
He drilled straight into the mains power here. We had Scottish Power out, the road was blocked and everything.
Oh my God.
And we had this power going in under the step and up inside the wall. And they've pulled it out and they've attached to the outside of the wall. So when you open that door, the first thing you see on the right is a big, thick black pipe leading up to the mains power, because they went in and tried to do some, I don't know what they done. I don't know how you fix a damp-proof course with a drill.
They do chemical injection. So what they say is, first of all, it's a faulty premise. What they say is, oh, you've got rising damp, water that miraculously travels upwards. Does not a thing. It doesn't exist. This is weirdly completely new knowledge in the industry, and there's a whole huge industry that's set up to do rising damp, and they're not doing it on purpose. They're just wrong, and the building science has moved beyond it. And it's not a thing. And so what they do is they drill holes in, and then they pump in like a chemical, like silicon sealant that's supposed to penetrate throughout and meet up with all of the little holes that you've done and create a damp membrane, a chemical damp membrane through it to stop anything penetrating up. Generally doesn't work. It doesn't, it's not a thing. Can usually just cause more problems because it makes the water travel in different directions. What you actually need to do is get the cement out and repoint with lime. That's it. It's really simple.
The number of people, every time I suggest this, that's really all we need to do to this, and the stone will do its job of keeping us warm.
They knew what they were doing.
It really did. It will work.
We're building houses now with this modern technology that lasts for 25 years and fall over, and they're crap. These guys, this is what, 200 years old, and it's pretty going strong.
1826.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
It still stood here. It's fine. Some of the walls, nothing is level, nothing is plumb.
That's all right.
doesn't really bother me. I quite like it.
No, I like it too. It's got some character.
Yeah, you just can't put shelves anywhere because that just draws your eye to it.
Yeah, you just have to make your own shelves. That's all. Bespoke, darling, bespoke.
Exactly. So yeah, and I'm told there's oil paint under this.
Right.
But I don't I have no idea what's underneath. It's been here for 200 years. Who knows what's been painting it with what at what point? But I do know that they tried to get it removed for a bit. Like they removed a wee rectangle and seen what's underneath.
Yeah.
So they know that that's the color. But I think it was very expensive, and it was more expensive because of
how slim it is.
There was not enough place, so it would involve blocking the street off, getting roadworks involved. Like it was just a big faff. But again, this was probably about 20 years ago, so it's possible that from what you say, the technology's improved and it's possible to do this quicker.
But I thought so. Definitely, it's definitely changed in like the last thing. So they actually use dry ice to do it now instead of thing. So there's heritage dry ice blasting, which is really gentle and non-toxic and all kinds of stuff. So you'd probably be looking at a kind of a heritage restoration-y type person, but they're not going to be a stranger to this conversation. It'll be somebody like that. Who is it? The STBA, is it? Sustainable. Is it the STBA? Sustainable Traditional Built Environment. It's research and trade body kind of association. So it's an alliance, and they deal with old techniques, technologies, modern building science, how the two meet. They work with Historic Environment Scotland and John Gilbert Architects and ASBP, and they know what they're talking about. And so they'd be well worth kind of being in touch with for general stuff to do with the whole of the house when you're doing retrofit stuff. They'll be able to give you some advice, and contractors. They'll probably have a contractors lists as well.
That would be very useful.
There's
because
also SPAB as well, who do.
I know SPAB.
Yeah, so they do some good stuff. They tend to be more at the kind of the earthy kind of heritage cob kind of end of the spectrum, but there is still traditional kind of heritage skills stuff.
Oh, that sounds great. I'd like to restore that clock as well at some point.
Yeah, that'd be great, wouldn't it? Lovely.
Against the black stone, no less. I'm desperate to see what this looks like at some point.
Yeah, no, it'd be great. That'd be really good. Yeah, and the sandstone doesn't look too bad, Nick, either. So
no, it's all pretty good. It's been cared for.
I think one of the things that's benefiting you greatly is the narrowness of the road, because if it was a wider road, traffic volume and speed would be higher, so your splashback would be greater, and that really erodes. If you look in like this around the centre of Glasgow and Edinburgh, if you look at the bottom of all of the buildings, with all of the redstone and the sandstone, it's all eroding away, and that's from salt splashback from the roads. And frost, it penetrates in, frost gets in and delaminates the stone and pops it off. But because you're on quite a narrow road, you haven't got as much of a splash. That's what that little along the bottom is. They've done like a little render piece. That's the equivalent of a skirting board for your house to help mitigate that splashback.
I see.
It should be lime. It's probably cement, but that could be a thing that gets knocked off and changed at a later date. But that's why it survived so well. Your little narrow street.
I see. Okay. I didn't know that. In terms of cement, though, the two houses in front of us, that one and that one, have put in new tile roofs.
Oh yeah.
And they just look so confusing. But before they fixed that, the bigger one, that one had a terrible leak.
Right.
I don't know if it had a leak or what it was, but their windows used to fog up. They put they put a new roof on and it made no difference. The windows are still condensating. They've now put new glazing in, but they've got secondary glazing behind it.
Wow.
And it's just so all this whole side, the guy came up and cemented first, thinking that could fix the problem. Like none of these things are going to work, and you're going to destroy them.
You're just making it worse. You're just trapping it. It's just like you're creating loads of moisture, and nobody opens their windows nowadays. Everybody's like keeps the windows shut. They're cooking, they're boiling the kettle, they're showering, they insist on breathing all day, and all of this moisture vapor is going in the house. It's got nowhere to go. Before, everything was, it was all lime, everything was lime, and you had a fireplace and a fire that was run semi-regularly, which dries it out loads. And now we just trap it in, and everybody's like, oh, it's leaking, put more waterproof paint on. It's leaking, put some damp-proof paint on it. And it's just like, the walls are just going, what are you doing? I'm trying to get this out.
Exactly.
Ridiculous. It's just sopping wet. But yeah, but once you it can fix itself really quickly. Like if you took that cement off and repointed in lime, like 6 months and the wall will be dry. It'll be like, and the whole house will feel differently. But it's fairly destructive, isn't it? If you're kind of saying to people, you need to knock off all of your plaster and all of your render and repoint everything, that's like, that's quite a vigorous intervention on your house.
I mean, it's that versus living with damp.
Yeah.
What would you rather do? Remove the render once, or sit and scrub your bathroom ceiling on a weekly basis?
Yeah, exactly. Well,
I don't want.
Yeah. No, people don't interact with the houses in the way that they're expecting. Everybody feels like their house should be this static thing that just stays being this wonderful thing for them, and they don't realize that significant elements of it are sacrificial, that are supposed to degrade over time and need maintenance. And the fact that these are all still here 200 years later is because they were maintained in a 20-year cycle, and that worked out. But we don't do that now, and that's why it's all falling apart.
It's interesting you say all of this. We hosted a talk with the Architecture Fringe, and Phineas Harper spoke about so the theme for the Architecture Fringe this year was unlearning, and he talked about uncareful housing and old buildings which were designed in a way like their repair mechanism was designed into the elevation. And so every 20 years there's studs that were put on the outside of this temple, and they were just there for you to climb up and refinish the mud.
Brilliant.
Basically, because that was just going to go away. That's just why that was like that. And I just like that is, we just don't think of things like that. It's just throw it away, buy a new one.
Yeah, it's so bizarre, isn't it? It's really weird. And I find, because that approach, I find it to be just really interesting. That's an exciting thing. Like, oh, what are all of the amazing things we can do to this building to solve all of these problems, if we're in the future, and to accept the fact that we're going to get loads of them wrong. But that to me is just, that's a fantastic opportunity. I mean, why would you just want to do the easy thing? It's just like, what?
No, I know. This was our argument at home the whole time was, why don't we just go and buy a shed? No.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
What a missed opportunity.
Exactly.
I have to sit in an office designing other people's shit all the time. Can I please have a go?
I want to do it for me. There's
brilliant.
Because I don't want to go and build a whole house because we have a house.
Yeah, exactly.
I can go and build myself a shed.
Do a little shed. Yeah, absolutely. Good.
I say shed. It's going to be the most dramatic building you've ever seen by the looks of it.
This whole process I can see being quite an interesting one. It's going to start off as quite a modest little shed, and by the time it's finished, it's going to have battens on the outside so you can climb up and fix stuff, and Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, climbing is just going to be for fun. We want to floor the upstairs and make it a wee go-kart.
Little tree house or something. Yeah.
I mean, it's just the two of us. We don't want kids, so we basically want
just for yourself. It's not the kids.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
More dogs, us, and then we'll obviously need to move to the ground floor when we hit a certain age, because
that's
stairs.
All right. And then your carers can live in the roof far away from perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be good. Or in the shed even.
Yeah, the very nice shed.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So I would say the main takeaway then would be to just like do a bit more observation and brainstorming about all the different ways you're going to use all of the spaces, and consider this whole thing as one design, not lots of separate ones. And then you can break off and specialize, but to consider it in that kind of a way. And do definitely consider things like the ground source heat pump coil, even if you're not going to connect it for a couple of years. You know, it's kind of way in. There's some really interesting economies of scale with that, and because I've looked at this recently for myself, and the efficiency of a ground source heat pump is much greater than an air source heat pump, but the cost is much greater because of that digging it into the ground sort of thing. So if you can kind of combine the two together, like if you're going to dig a big hole, but you're going to also improve the soil while you do it so that you can have a functioning garden, then that offsets some of that cost and you're hitting two birds, you know? So it can be that way. But do bear in mind that heat pump technology is the new poster child of the net zero carbon movement, which means it's going to get loads of money pumped into it and efficiencies are probably going to improve. So making a decision on one type of technology now for in 2 or 3 years time isn't necessarily a good idea, because it might be so much better in 3 years that you've dug a big hole for a coil that you just don't need.
So no, and that, like, in terms of when you say improving the soil, for example, this is ancient soil for,
pretty good already.
Yeah, like I know, I believe that because it's a weaver's village, I think I believe one of these spaces was a loom.
Wow,
and
cool.
and that there was a consistent jam making thing here. So there's berries and fruits out there that if you don't mow, like this whole thing, by the way, provided us with berries for jam last year.
Brilliant.
For the last 2 years, we've been lifting out berries from there because it is insane how quick fruit appear, and like we're not doing it.
It's already productive without you actually intentionally gardening it. Yeah,
absolutely. It
you don't need to improve it then.
That's one of those, like, we need to think about, like, it, because if we were to dig up that entire ground, it would actually cost us in terms of putting that grass back.
Yeah.
That would be quite a bit of, I mean, I say effort, it's like weird, I just throw some seeds on it and walk away for a couple of weeks, but no, I'm gonna look into permaculture, and I think what you said, I have all of these ideas, and it's very nice because I have no brief. And because I've not set myself a brief, it's just this, like, this ever expanding
stuff. Well, that's it. What I do is just do like a considered amount of different brain dumps, you know, get yourself a Miro board going or something, do a load of mind maps, and then see what you might start to find the commonalities within that, and then that will give you a brief. But then you probably need to be a bit kind of heavy-handed with yourself and just kind of go, right, I need to pick 4 things that are the important bits. And that's what my brief is going to be. Because otherwise you can do a kind of a quite joyfully chaotic thing where you just wing it and make stuff up as you go along. And that could also be great. But if you want to maximize the potential for playing around with different technologies and techniques and things, then probably being considered is a good idea. But
no, you're right. That I was, on some level, there was a part of me that was thinking, just wing it. We'll see how it goes, because it's a shed. I don't care. But
exactly.
But at the same time, there's the other things around it that are if we need to use it as a shed, it kind of needs to be somewhere useful. And
you're like, part of you going like, I'm used to coloring in the lines, so I should really not do that. I should color outside the lines and go crazy. But part of you's like, well, I like coloring in the lines.
It's exactly. The lines serve a purpose.
They define it. It's so neat.
Exactly. But there's it's between the two of us, of me wanting to follow processes and, you know, stay within the lines, but at the same time thinking, we'll just throw some mud together, pour some stuff into tires, stick some.
I mean, there's probably room for both. Maybe you can. Maybe you could wing the kind of the general building, like the foundation-y bit and building the actual frame of it, but then you can plan to do the interesting experimental stuff with the materials you fill in between, that sort of thing. Take a bit from both shelves.
It'll be interesting to see the joins. I could go absolutely bonkers and just do the 3, like have one wall that's against a fence or something, so you won't ever see it, and then the 3 other walls are completely different.
All at weird angles and falling over, and
Go bonkers.
Sounds good to me.
Hey, this has been very, very handy, by the way. I don't, landscape on the basis of it being something I've not studied becomes like, that big difficult topic over there. Which it's not. anyone can
Well,
be
it's just unfamiliar, isn't it? I think you just need to kind of get out there a little bit and work with it, and not be kind of overborne by it, because it is intimidating, you know, and you're looking at it and it's so far outside of the palette that you're used to dealing with. But it's not really, it's just another set of materials. You just need to kind of understand the materials a little bit more, and then it will fall into place.
Yeah, that's a nice way of thinking about it.
Trademarked.
Yeah. Great.
Good stuff. All right, well, please do keep sharing, you know, what you're doing, and asking more questions and stuff, because it's an interesting project, and yeah, it'd be good to see what's going on.
Yeah, at some point over the next decade it will become a house.
Yeah, exactly. I like these open-ended ones though, because everything's normally a massive deadline, so just a little drip feed of updates would be great.
We have no deadline. I'm trying not to rush it, because yeah, we have no money for one thing.
Everything else is rushing anyway, so
yeah, exactly. This is, we'll do it as time passes. It'll be fine.
Great. Good stuff.
Cool. Yeah, have a good weekend.
Yeah.
Do you have anything fun planned? Is it sunny where you are?
It's really sunny at the moment, actually, but they're fixing the roads near me, so it's been like constant noise and smell of bitumen for 2 days. So it's incredibly humid in my office because I've had to keep the window shut. But yeah, no, it's all right. And then we're back down on site next week. We're building a little straw bale house down in Frome, and so I'm back down helping on that next week. So yeah, no, it's all good.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, it's all fun.
Pretty good.
Great stuff. Brilliant.
Cool.
All right, well, thanks very much for coming on and sharing your project. That's really interesting.
Thank you for having us for a whole hour.
Yeah, it's good. You've done well.
Not bad. Yeah, for a project that isn't a project.
Yeah.
Been a good discussion.
Good stuff. Brilliant. All right.
Cool.
Well, thanks very much, and we'll catch up again soon.
Yep. See you later.
All right. Bye-bye.